What up, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the Arrowhead Kingdom Chiefs Cast Show. Big reminder that all Chiefs fans are invited to visit us for game day. Visit arrowheadkingdom.org to learn more about the group and to find your local group. And please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. We are, of course, presented by Complete Weddings and Events, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth, lighting, and day of coordination services. Visit them at completewedo.com. All right, we played a preseason game.
Yes, we did.
What were your initial thoughts on that preseason game?
Carson Steele, Crocky Balboa. I love the whole backstory. I love the whole alligator since he's been a kid. That guy really surprised me and also got me excited. Like as a juggernaut, playing some at the running back and goal line packages, mainly as a fullback, catching out the backfield. What a hell of a weapon for Magic Mahomes. Crocky Balboa, that's his new name.
So Crocky Balboa.
He's coming from the Crocky Balboa, man. He's the alligator coming all the way from LA, UCLA, and he is serious about football. And I'm intrigued with him. And also I'm a little bit sad, Josh, because that bad news with Hollywood Brown. So with him being out, like right now he's scheduled 4 to 6 weeks, could be right at that time, could be a little bit longer. Now we're looking at the next man up in the wide receiver room. So that's something that I would like to talk about too also. But the defense, oh man, we got to be the defensive backs of the NFL. It does. We lost Snead, right? But we lost nothing. It seems like all of those cornerbacks are great. That guy Hicks, he's a monster, man.
Yes,
I watched
fourth round
coverage. I watched him do things, and I was like, wow, this guy's a monster.
Yeah. Okay, so I got to ask a question.
Okay.
Crocky Balboa, why are you calling him Crocky Balboa?
Well, I saw on the internet, the guy is like, he has this pet alligator, right? That's
an alligator named Crocky.
Right. Same age as him. And he calls the alligator Crocky. So I'm calling him Crocky Balboa because he reminds me of my favorite cinema character, Rocky Balboa. The guy's like, he comes up from the trenches. He's not a draft pick at all. Actually, he's a guy that's pretty much an undrafted free agent, and I see greatness in him. So I think Crocky Balboa is the right term for him because he moves like an alligator. He's hungry, and he just has that motor. He doesn't quit, and he turns like an alligator. If you watch him, when they hit him, he twists his body, like the alligator does or the crocodile. Sometimes I have a hard time distinguishing the difference. I think it's the beak or something that makes it different. But they both do the same thing. They both grab and roll. And he runs into defenders like he's that crocodile, but he's got a death roll that rolls him out of tackles. And I'm excited. I'm excited about Crocky Balboa.
Okay, so I'm going to look at what the AI overview of the internet put together for crocodiles versus alligators, because I really think that we need to get into this because we are crossing the streams here. I remember learning about this, and and you're correct, it is the snout. So I'm going to go down what the key differences are. So color.
Okay.
Alligators are usually darker with more gray and black colors, while crocodiles are lighter with more tan and brown colors. So if you look, the dark, rich greens, that's usually an alligator found in Florida. Crocodiles. Okay, so snout. Alligators have the shorter, broader U-shaped shouts, while the crocodiles have a longer, pointier V-shaped shout. So if you have the rounded snout, that's an alligator. The crocodiles are usually tighter, and they've got the nostrils that flare up a little bit. Teeth. Alligators have an overbite, so the lower teeth are hidden, their mouths are closed. Crocodiles have some bottom teeth, so when their mouths are closed, their fourth largest tooth is seen, and those are the ones that come up. So that's another one. Habitat. Wow. Alligators prefer freshwater, while crocodiles prefer saltwater or brackish water, which is basically dirty saltwater. Behavior. Right. alligators are less aggressive than crocodiles. So I think Crocky Balboa, for how aggressive he was, is
Yes,
appropriate. And I think Crocky is a great name for an alligator. It's also
it
the most
sure is.
ridiculous name for an alligator.
It
And
is.
I just think it works really well.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's definitely a market with that, man. It's definitely a market.
Definitely a market. And there's a big market of people that really don't know there's a difference. That's
Yeah,
the other part about it.
literally. And thanks for that education because I really didn't know. I was like, I remember learning a little bit about it in grade school, but I mean, how many times did we really pay attention in grade school?
It's the internet, so it has to be true. But I remember
Right.
the thing with the snout. What I always remembered was alligators have the rounded snout, the crocodiles have the pointy snout, and the nostrils are a little more defined. So there we
Yeah,
go.
and
That was more than
then
I thought we had.
you sure right, man. And being that he's from the West Coast, I can see that dirty salt water over there
Yep, there
versus
you
the
go.
fresh water. So
Yeah,
Crocky Balboa.
Rocky Balboa. I was down in Florida earlier this year, and alligators are just hanging out in the water in the ditches. It's pretty wild.
Wow.
You don't go
Yeah,
walk your
that
dogs, in that area.
no, yeah, it's and the people in Florida, they're it's kind of like they treat it like we Texans treat cows. Like, yes, so now it's a gator. So what?
Yeah, they're
But we're
kind of out
looking
there.
like, wow, you know?
Exactly. Or I'm live from Kansas tonight. Back in the day, that's how we treated snakes. It's like, yeah, leave them alone.
Yeah.
Just kind of go. I think that's some Texas stuff too. So the one thing that I think we need to specifically go into about this preseason game outside of the personnel we were talking about, that kickoff that I was looking forward to, kind of
Mm,
turned out to be a disaster. You had
yes, it
McCole
is.
Hardman grabbing a ball with a knee on the ground out of the end zone, and of course the NFL grabs that and just goes, I feel like we might have some nuance to look at with these rules. And the internet, of course, grabs everything and does the whole, oh, well, the Chiefs have a problem. I guess the NFL better look at this. What were your thoughts watching that kickoff?
I just as I always thought, I was like, this is funky, and you could tell with the players, like the if the example that you used with Mecole Hardman. It's putting the players in an awkward position because all their life they've played the kickoff, kick return a certain way, and now it's different.
Yeah.
So it looked like to me a lot of lost souls out there. They were kind of like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And it's just kind of like, I don't know. I
Well, so here's a,
It's gonna have to grow up.
here's a key football principle: the punt game. What are the instructions when you're the punt returner? What's the first thing you do?
You catch the ball,
Well,
but
no,
you
no, no.
get
What's the first thing you do when you walk out on the field? And I know you know the answer to this. What's the first thing you do? You stand where?
you stand in the backfield.
Well, you stand on
No,
the
no,
10-yard line.
10 yard, 10 yard.
You stand on the 10-yard line. And when the
Mm-hmm.
ball comes, if it's over your head, what do?
You let it go.
Exactly. And you let it go, hoping for a touchback, and you make those guys make a play. So with this kickoff rule, it's very counterintuitive because if you're standing on the 10-yard line and the ball lands, you have to know, is this landing 10 yards behind me, 5 yards behind me, 2 yards behind me? Because you have to play it if it's within that 20-yard space. So there's going to be a learning curve. I think some people are kind of losing their minds about the kickoff rule, but the key thing that I just want to point out is that for the first time, really, and as long as I can remember, the NFL is doing something that baseball and a lot of other sports do all the time, which is
Okay.
try things out in lower leagues in preseason.
Right.
So I think that this rule is going to look different. And I think the NFL honestly was planning on reviewing that rule. And it wasn't just the primetime game with the Chiefs and
So
Jags.
think
Yeah.
season job that they're gonna if it's too disastrous, they're gonna say, you know what, scratch it. Let's go back to
I
what we did.
think they could. I think the NFL is smart enough to do that. I really do. Now, if this is baseball, we give it 3 seasons, but this is football. They're nimble. They look at the rule book every single year, and I don't think that that's going to be around if it's too many instances like that.
So let me ask you this. So like with the kickoff, it's one thing that I was not clear of. So, like you just said, if it's behind you, that's why they was running back, trying to grab it, and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So, with that being said, is it still the same rule that if the defender grabs it, he can run that in for a touchdown?
So I think it's what the fumble. Okay, first of all, I'm going to point out I'm not an expert on these kickoff rules, but the way that I understand the overall core is that the ball has to land between the 20 and the goal line.
Okay.
And you have to field it if it's in there. If it
Wow.
doesn't go that far, you have to announce an onside kick only on the fourth quarter. But so
Yeah.
essentially, you have two options. It's either land between the 20 and the goal line or go in the end zone. And then I think you still have the decision if you want to roll it out of the end zone. Again, I should probably research this more before I'm
Yeah.
talking, but whatever. But but you have to field it within the 0 to 20. And so that I think is the crazy part. And so the reality, the intention of the rule, the way that I understand the rule, the intention of the rule is that you have to kick it within the 20 to the goal line as the kicking team. You start running as soon as the ball is actually kicked. So it's basically an onside versus offside type of thing, or how you start from the line of scrimmage. And as a defender, you have to field that ball or be really, really, really friggin' sure that it's going into the end zone to down. And
Wow.
there might even be some nuance if it lands, but basically what it's forcing is a play in that red zone, the reverse red zone, the touchback zone.
Hmm.
It's forcing a play to start the series.
So,
And
so
so,
the
and so, as an overall intention, I really appreciate what they're trying to do. They're adding a football play. They're adding a football play, and they're adding a you know, more jumbly running play that's less violent than what the kickoff.
Oh wow.
But it's close enough to a punt that players have to think a little more than you would think.
Yeah. And that's true. So we still with
That's
the
the wild part.
same four? Are we still with the same four kick returners like the past, or no? Because I don't know if I remember if I saw four back there.
Yeah, we have some homework. We need to watch
Yeah.
this second game. We need to see how the rules tweak, and we need to see if we can get a better handle. And some of that, I really don't think that there's any way that we can say that we've learned anything from the kickoff rule at this point.
No, I don't.
So there you
I
go.
don't.
And that's what I think is the wild part of this, and also the interesting part.
Yeah. Do you think that this would allow more rugby players or more players that are special teams people to actually commit to a role there?
I think that's the part that's going to be interesting. What I think is possible. We talked about this last week with Reese Lightning, Luis
Yeah.
Reese Zamet. In theory, if he finds a role within the kickoff space, he could open a door for rugby players. But there's also the possibility that he's just the most elite athlete in that sport, and he decided to try a sport that he can make more money. And
Right.
that's probably the more likely scenario, but we need to see how this plays. So I'm almost of the, take what you think you might have learned from the first one. Let's see what happens from the second one, and we'll kind of go from there.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there we go. So
Absolutely.
you're getting a little air in Houston. Is it hot and miserable
Yeah,
down there?
it has been, man. But today it actually feels great. It
There you go.
actually feels,
There you
you
go.
know, and I hadn't replaced that light in the well, I did, but the light in the garage and like where my little man cave where I'm smoking, I'm like, wow, it's doing something funky. So I'm like, whatever. There
Well, there you go. There you go. All right,
you
so
go.
let's get on to this Lions game that we have. So our second preseason game, the Chiefs have become such a box office situation. They are headlining the NFL on Saturday evening for the second week in a row, playing the Detroit Lions, which was a great week one matchup this last time. It was everybody's darling going into the NFL conference championship weekend. And there are many highly intelligent people picking the Lions to do essentially the same thing this year.
Really?
Win a division, do well, have some home field games, so forth. So this game coming up, what are the things that you're looking at in this preseason game?
Uh, well, I'm looking at more targets to Xavier Worthy, but not enough to call. We don't. For God, we don't need him to be injured. But I'm looking at. I want to see Tony get off. Uh, I want to see Ross get off more. Ross did really good against the Jaguars. I want to see him get more targets. You know, I want to see Reese Zammit. I want to see him uh, actually, catch out the backfield. I want to see more of Carson Steele, Crocky Balboa. I want to see him get get going more. Don't need to see much from Pacheco. Pacheco can kind of rest this one out almost until the season because we know that he's a dangerous guy. We don't need to see a lot of Zeus Kelsey, but I would love to see more of Jarrett Wiley. I would love to see him get more snaps. Him and Noah Gray. I think he's listed as the third tight end, but I would love to see him get more targets that way. I'm not worried about the defense. The defense is spectacular. They're playing, and I'm a little nervous about Carson Wentz but thank God that Mahomes doesn't really miss games. So Carson, you have to show me a little bit better. Number 13, what's his name? Obadeli or something. Um, he outplayed Carson Wentz hands down last week. He was making the reads, making the throws. So I'm watching the bag up quarterbacks, and I want to see Carson Wentz do something. I don't think that guy's been the same since Nick Foles took his shine by winning that Super Bowl. I think he's been spirit broken a long time, but somehow he's allowed to make checks. He's been getting a good salary. So I would love to see some Chad Henning or Matt Moore type of plays with him and see if he can at least fill up to those shoes.
Yeah, so Chris Oladokin is
Ola,
our third string quarterback. Yeah, Chris Oladokin. I'm pretty much in the same place that you are. I am looking forward to one, seeing how our wide receiver depth chart solidifies. I think that we're pretty set with Rice and Worthy on the ends. So somebody needs to take that because if I look at the depth chart right now,
mm-hmm.
it's Mahomes, Wentz, Oladokin at quarterback, Pacheco, Clyde, then Eric Prince at running back, then Rashee Rice, Justin Watson, Justin Ross, Marquise Brown, Sky Moore, McCole Hardman, Xavier Worthy, Kadarius Toney, Nico Remigio. So the three wide receivers that are starters are Rice, Brown, and Worthy. Somebody's going to take that Brown spot because
Right.
Brown's hurt. He's going to be out 4 to 6, which means he's not playing 1 to 3 when it
No.
comes to the regular season. So who's going to take that second spot? And at this point, I don't even know that I have a speculative answer.
Why?
So we'll
So
go there.
it's Brown is not on the outside. He's in the
Um,
slot.
so again, I'm just looking at this. I'm looking at the ESPN depth chart of who the three are. And so I would say that Rice is probably the slot with Brown and Worthy on the outside. But it
Okay.
doesn't call it out that way. It just says the three starting wide receivers. But regardless, we are most likely going to be running with one running back in the backfield, a tight end, and three wide receivers.
Yeah.
So
And how
position them
long
as
how
you
long are
will,
we
there's
done
got
with
to be a third
Watson?
one.
How long are we done with Watson? Like Watson, uh, he's out for a couple of weeks too, right?
So Watson's out for a couple of weeks too. I don't know that he's a good enough receiver to actually make a roster if he's not playing.
Yeah.
So that's another piece. So what I'm really looking for is who is going to be the second or the third wide receiver, whatever you want to call it. We have Rice and we have Worthy. Who's going to be the third one? Second thing I'm looking at, I don't want to see Travis Kelsey on the field really
No.
before one. There's no point. So Gray, Wiley, Irv Smith. Gray is the second on the depth chart. Wiley and Irv Smith, one of those two is going to make the roster for sure. I think that's kind of a given. And then
Yeah.
Carson Steele is listed as a fullback. So are we going back to a fullback? Or I saw George Blowfish, who does our 10 things on a weekly basis, call out a comparison to Philip Lindsay with his early time with the Broncos. I think that makes a ton of sense too. And he could make his way in as just a guy that runs the ball and makes everybody miserable.
Mm-hmm. I
So
think
that's the
so.
offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, the biggest note that I would say that I saw from really all the more critical people is that between Nazeeh Johnson, Jalen Watson, Carmel Haddon, Keith Taylor, nobody has really gone out and taken that left cornerback spot opposite of or right cornerback, basically the
But
second cornerback spot outside on the opposite side of Trent McDuffie. So
and
I'm
see,
looking.
yeah, I was hoping that number two. I'm trying to think of his.
Yeah, Williams, Joshua Williams.
I was hoping he would make that leap, but I just don't know.
So I'm hoping that he does as well. But from safety standpoint, we got Justin Reed back. Jaden Hicks looks like he could play today. Brian Cook
Yes,
is back and just angry. So that seems like a good safety core.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So there we go. So key takeaway, I don't think either one of us are really looking to learn anything from the score in this game. We just want to see some of these position battles line up.
Yeah, we want to see if Justin Ross is going to elevate, if Miko Hartman is going to. It seems like a no brainer that Miko can do that because he's the veteran presence, but I just don't know. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
maybe if I had to take my chances, I think I would be more confident with him filling in that Brown spot until Brown is ready to come back. You
And I
know, I
would
think,
too. I mean, on paper, we should be expecting Kadarius Toney to do it, but I don't know that we need to be expecting anything from him or Sky Moore at this point.
yeah, I know they're barely hanging on the roster, huh?
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. All right. So the last thing that we had on the list for today was picking our playoff teams. So
Okay,
so let's roll through the division. So last week, just to recap this, we'll do the AFC first because that's the conference that really matters. So in the AFC,
okay,
we listed in force power rank order, we listed the AFC North as the best conference, the AFC West as the second best, the East as the third best, and the South as the fourth best. So let's start with the South. Do we
okay.
see a world where they get more than one playoff team?
Uh, no, I think the only one that's going to make that postseason is the Texans. They seem postseason ready.
Okay, so I agree with you. I think Houston's the only playoff team there. So then let's go to the AFC East. We have the Bills, the Patriots, the Jets, and the Dolphins. How many playoff teams do we get out of there? My gut reaction is two, and
That's my
I'm looking at this as the Patriots. There's no way in hell they're making it. That
no.
team is going to have an epic level of suck. The Bills are in, regardless of anything. The Bills are in, and so then it's do we get a Jets team that, depending on who you're talking to, punches far above its weight, or
Right.
punches its weight and makes the playoffs? Or do you get a Dolphins team that punches below its weight and misses the playoffs again, depending on who you're asking, or punches its weight and makes it? So I'm inclined to believe that there's two, and I'm Bills Dolphins, and I think the
Mhm.
Dolphins are. We'll get into seeding, shortly, but I'm thinking it's Bills Dolphins.
I'm in total agreement with you. Bills and Dolphins. The Dolphins are just too loaded not to. You know.
Yeah, and the Jets are two Jets.
Yeah,
So
they are.
then we get to the last two. We have three playoff teams set. So we have the AFC West. I think we both agree that the Chiefs are going to win that. So we got Kansas City
Right.
as a playoff spot. So the
And I
real
think we're
question,
going to be the only ones in our division
and so
there.
that's the real question that we ask: are we getting a second playoff team? Are the Chargers going to take one of those playoff spots, or are we going to see three AFC North teams?
Three AFC North teams if I was a betting guy.
Cleveland's out.
Yeah, Cleveland's out.
So Baltimore, Cincinnati,
And Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. There you go. All right. I don't really have any arguments with any of that. That's pretty much where my head was at.
Mm-hmm.
So to put this all to bed, one seed.
One seed. I think the one seed is going. I don't think it's going to be us. I believe the one seed this year. I'm gonna go with the I'm gonna go with the Ravens again. They're like that. They're great during the season, and they choke in the playoffs. So I'm gonna go with the Ravens, and I got them 15-2.
You think the Ravens go 15-2? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to run down their schedule real quick, and I want you to
Okay.
tell me where the two losses are.
Okay.
So week one, at Chiefs versus Raiders, at Cowboys versus Bills, at Bengals versus Commanders, at Bucks, at Browns versus Broncos versus Bengals, at Steelers, at Chargers versus Eagles, at Giants versus Steelers, at Texans versus Browns.
Two losses. Kansas City week one, and they're gonna go 1-1 with the Bengals.
Okay. Okay. So I'll roll with that. I'll roll with you on that one. I kind of want to say that I can see the Texans going out and getting a one seed, but running down their schedule, the Colts versus Bears at Vikings versus Jags versus Bills at Patriots at Packers versus Colts at Jets versus Lions at Cowboys versus Titans at Jags versus Dolphins at Chiefs versus Ravens at Titans. I think they take two losses in their division just because they're going to. They're going to get played tough. I can see them taking a loss at, any. They play at the Packers and the Chiefs. I don't think you come out of that beating both of those teams.
No,
They
no.
host the Lions and the Ravens, and I don't think you come out of both of those. So, I mean, they're a four-loss team most likely, and I can see
Mm-hmm.
the Ravens doing what you're doing. So we'll go with Baltimore as the one. I'm aligned on that. So
Okay.
then our other division winners, we have Houston, Kansas City, and then are we saying Buffalo wins the East?
Yes. Well, no, I got Miami. I think
Okay.
Miami should win the East. They're loaded enough, but like you say, you cannot sleep on Josh Allen.
So
He's
how
a
about
better quarterback.
so how
To
about we do this? We put Buffalo and Miami as the 4-5.
okay.
And since you picked
Okay.
Miami as a winner, I'm just going to not argue with you. I don't know that I agree, but I don't know that I disagree enough to talk about this. So we'll say they're the 4-5. Um,
Right.
so Kansas City or Houston is the two. I think the Chiefs put up some points and they're the two seed.
I think we're the two seed. I think we're going to be a 14-3 team.
I
With
think, yeah, so we'll get into record next week. I think we get sniped at least once by the Chargers. I think that we lose one of these tough games, and there we go. So then Cincinnati is a 6, Pittsburgh sneaking in as a 7th. Good with that.
yeah, yeah.
All right. All right. I am aligned right there. So now let's get into the NFC. So to go back to our conference rankings. So we listed the NFC North as the best
Okay.
NFC, then the East, and
Mm-hmm.
then the West, and then the South is the worst. So again, let's start with the South. I mean, the Falcons are winning that, right? They have to.
You think so? I wouldn't sleep on Tampa Bay.
Okay. We know they're only getting one team. So let's argue
Yeah.
Tampa Bay versus Atlanta because I don't think we're
Right.
going to argue for two teams. So what makes you
No.
think that Tampa Bay pulls us off over Atlanta?
Uh, Mike Evans. Mike Evans, his connection with Baker Mayfield. I don't think that Cousins is going to last a full season healthy. And I think by mid-season, Penix takes over. And Penix does well, but not well enough to get into the playoffs. But he shows promise this half a season, or maybe the last 4 or 5 weeks or whatever. He shows promise, and people like, wow, Penix looked good. He looked good, but I still think that they're growing. I believe that Tampa Bay gets that with a 10-7 record, and I think that Atlanta will be 9-8.
Okay, so I agree with you. We're going to have two middling teams. So the
Mm-hmm.
Falcons bye week, they play the Broncos on November 17th, and then they're off until December 1st.
Wow.
So if you're making a play to Penix outside of a really bad injury to Cousins, if you're looking at this as a shake it up and we haven't gotten anything, that means that by the time we hit Thanksgiving, Kyle Pitts hasn't gotten going.
Right.
We don't have anything major happening. And so the run down the end is the Chargers at home, then at the Vikings, at the Raiders versus the Giants, at the Commanders versus the Panthers. So I want to pin that because they get the Buccaneers out of the way both times. So there's no chance they're playing each other to win anything.
No.
So let's
You
look.
think Atlanta's going to beat the Bucks twice?
I don't know that they're going to beat them twice, but then when you look at the Bucks' final schedule starting at Thanksgiving, they're at the Giants, at the Panthers versus the Raiders, at the Chargers, at the Cowboys versus the Panthers versus the Saints. So based on the back end of those schedules, I'm inclined to believe that if they're even going into Thanksgiving, I'd probably give Tampa that advantage.
Right.
So I'm good rolling with Tampa winning that. Just talking about this, I was pretty big on
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, but I can roll with Tampa. I understand your argument, and you've convinced me enough for this exercise.
Well, thank you, Josh.
Yeah, well, there you go. So then the next one, you were very down on the NFC West. So
Yes,
I think that you're sleeping on the Rams, but you made a comment last week that you think the 49ers are the only playoff team.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
So you don't see any chance that the Rams get in. I'm gonna put a pin on the Rams because
Yeah, we gotta put a pin on them.
I know San Francisco is getting in regardless.
Right,
So I'm gonna put LA with an X there, and we're gonna debate them versus someone else. So
right.
then we get into the NFC East and the NFC North. So the East, do you see a world where the Giants contend for anything other than the top draft pick?
No,
Me
not at
either.
all.
Okay. So Cowboys and Eagles, we expect them to both be in. Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to put Dallas and Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. And then we're going to put a pin in the Commanders as well. Or do you think that they're dead on arrival?
I don't think they're dead on arrival, but I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs. But they'll do fair. They probably will go 8-9
Okay.
or 7-10.
So we're gonna pin that team, and then now let's get into the division that everybody's talking about. We've got the Bears, the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions. I think we're aligned that the Vikings aren't making anything. They're gonna
Nope.
roll in with Darnold. It's looking like there's no chance we're gonna see their new quarterback because of the knee thing. So that's unfortunate. Do we both
That
feel
is very
good? Do we both feel good that Packers and Lions are in?
Packers and Lions are definitely in.
All right. So we got Detroit, we got Green Bay, and then we're going to put a pin in the Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
So we have the Bucks, the Niners, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Lions, and the Packers all in. So we're
Mm-hmm.
vying for what we're going to call the 7 seed between the we have the Rams, the
Mm-hmm.
Commanders, and the Bears.
Rams, Commanders, and Bears. My gut wants to say the Bears, but my better judgment is like, the Rams. McVay is he's a hell of a coach, and if that's the sit right there, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams get in, but I don't know. I think a rookie has got to get in there, and I think Caleb might pull it off. He looks pretty good, you know.
So for the record, I don't
Uh-huh.
I don't think you need to sit there and say that a rookie has to make it in.
Nope.
I'm a Caleb believer,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also rational enough to know that when you're in a division like they are, it's still
Right.
progress even if you don't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm good rolling with creating a section called lurking for Chicago and Washington because I'm not convinced that between, we'll say, Dallas,
Right. Lurking with Chicago.
Philadelphia, Detroit, Green Bay, I could see one of those having a fall off. I don't
Right.
know who. I'm just saying that I can't tell you that I intrinsically trust all four of those teams. So
No, you're
so
right.
one of those other two could get in, but okay. So we have the Rams as a 7 seed. So let's pick a 1 seed. What's more likely that San Francisco completely bucks the whole Super Bowl curse?
Okay.
All Chiefs after
1 seed, Detroit.
1 seed. Okay, so that's what I was going to say. Are you feeling Detroit or San Fran? I'm with you with Detroit.
I'm going with Detroit.
I'm
with
I'm
Detroit.
with you with Detroit. Okay, cool. So we're not going to argue about that one. So we got
That's
Detroit
right.
as the 1. How about San Fran as the 2?
San Fran is the 2. Yep.
I'm saying Tampa, the South, is the worst division. They're the 4. So Dallas, Philly, who wins that division? Dallas won it last year. Nobody wins the East 2 years in a row. So Philly this year?
Philadelphia.
Philly. Okay.
Because they got Saquon, and they're definitely gonna get that 3rd seed.
Yep. So there we go. Green Bay, Dallas. Who is going to Tampa and who is playing Philly? I'm kind of thinking that we got a Dallas Philly playoff game, and they take the 6 and Green Bay takes the 5.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm thinking like that with those guys.
Rock and roll.
Dallas
Okay.
versus Philly. And
all right, so
Dallas, I just coming out of that, but they're
you good? Okay. So as of right now, the way we're calling the playoffs going into the 2nd week of the preseason, we have Baltimore and Detroit as the 1 seeds getting a bye. So the first week of the playoffs will be Kansas City hosting Pittsburgh, Houston hosting Cincinnati, and Miami hosting Buffalo. So we have a divisional matchup. On the NFC side, we are going to have San Francisco hosting 7 seed LA Rams division. We're going to have Philly hosting Dallas division. And we are going to have Tampa hosting Green Bay. So what that really means is that we're going to go into the divisional round with a lot of the same key players, still playing, most likely.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what's
the
going to
NFL, predictably unpredictable and also unpredictably predictable, i.e., Chiefs are probably going to win the Super Bowl again.
I think so. I think so because if we're hosting the Steelers, hey, it was a great run, Mike Tomlin, but y'all going home. Bye-bye.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Any final takes for the week?
No, man. I am just glad that football is back in, and I'm just looking forward to seeing who's going to make that jump in our receiver room. My gut feeling is Mecole Hardman, just because he has the experience. He's been catching balls from Mahomes since 2019?
Yep.
Yeah, 19. Wow. So yeah, he has 3 rings. So at this point, he has more experience than Sky, Tony, and Sky, Tony, and Ross.
Yeah.
And
Combined, really.
what yeah, yeah, yeah. So he should. I mean, it's his thing to lose there. But if my gut is hopefully he shows us that he's the pro that caught in the Super Bowl. And actually, if he starts off good, I don't see Brown getting his job back. I see Brown coming in behind Miko Hartman, and it's Hartman, Rice, and Worthy.
That's an aggressive take.
Yeah, that's super aggressive, right?
Super aggressive take. Super aggressive take. Okay. All right. Well, my final take is the Olympics were awesome. Great 3 weeks. We had some really compelling sports stories.
It's almost like telling a big. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
That
So
the
you cut out.
future was going to hold.
Exactly.
Oh, I said breakdancing. I said that.
Oh, exactly.
Breakdancing was very.
Yeah. Yeah. The breakdancing
Makes you wonder what's next in 2028 in LA.
Exactly.
Are we going to shoot dice? Are we going to play? Are we going to play spades?
There we go. Play some bones. That shooter from Turkey was good too. That was interesting. But the Olympics, highly compelling 3 weeks of TV. Paralympics are coming up. It's good stuff. Keep watching those, and cheers to LA in 2028. Y'all have some shoes to fill.
Yeah.
France did a good job. So, all right.
Yeah.
And until next
Big
time,
Big
go.
Go Chiefs!
Chiefs.